Welcome to DreamWave English. I am Sophia, and today you are about to step into an 80-minute C2 listening journey that was designed to reshape the way you hear, understand, and respond to English in real life. Before we begin, I want you to imagine something. Imagine that you are sitting in a quiet cafe in a new country. The conversations around you are fast, layered, and full of details that native speakers use effortlessly. You can understand the overall meaning, but you want something more. You want to understand every nuance, every shift in tone, every subtle implication behind the words. That is exactly what this lesson will train you to do. In these next 80 minutes, you will hear natural conversations that are not scripted in a simplistic way. They sound like real life because they are modeled after how people actually speak in workplaces, travel situations, academic settings, and everyday discussions. But before we enter those conversations, I want to challenge your mind with something. Ask yourself this. How deeply can you listen when the topic becomes unpredictable? Can you still follow the flow of ideas when details change rapidly? Can you stay focused even when the speaker adds new layers of meaning to every sentence? These are the skills that separate advanced learners from truly fluent speakers, and today we will build them together. To help you stay engaged and focused throughout the video, I will guide you step by step. You will not just listen, you will observe how the speakers choose their words, how they adjust their speed, how they use stress to highlight key points, and how they shift tone when expressing opinions, doubts, or excitement. These patterns are the heart of real fluency. When you can identify them quickly, your brain begins to understand English almost automatically. And that is the goal of this session. Before we begin the first conversation, let me ask you a simple but powerful question. When you listen to English at an advanced level, do you focus more on understanding every single word, or do you focus on the message and the emotion behind the words? Many learners still try to catch every word, but native speakers rarely listen this way. They listen for meaning, intention, and overall structure. If you can train your brain to think like this, comprehension becomes faster and less tiring. So as you listen today, shift your attention to the ideas behind the sentences, not just the sentences themselves. Now, let me introduce what you can expect in this first section of the video. You will hear a conversation between two colleagues discussing a cross-border business project. Their conversation is filled with advanced vocabulary, subtle disagreements, polite negotiation strategies, and a mix of formal and informal expressions. The dialogue moves quickly, but it also has pauses, hesitations, and changes in tone. These details are important because they show you how English sounds when it is authentic, not artificial. Before we play the conversation, I want to give you a listening challenge. As you listen, try to notice three things. First, identify any words that carry emotional weight, such as expressions of concern, enthusiasm, doubt, or confidence. These words often guide your understanding of how the speaker feels. Second, pay attention to how the speakers introduce, support, and conclude their ideas. English speakers often use structure markers, such as the phrase, "the main issue is," or "the thing we have to consider." These markers help you follow the flow of the conversation. Third, notice any moments where the speakers interrupt themselves or shift direction. These natural signals help you understand real-time thinking. As you listen, do not worry if you do not understand everything. Let the conversation move naturally, just as it would if you were hearing it in a workplace or public setting. Later in the video, we will break down key vocabulary, expressions, and listening strategies that appear in the conversation. For now, your goal is to stay present, focus on the big picture, and let your mind adapt to the rhythm and speed of advanced English. Now, before we begin, take a moment to prepare your environment. Make sure you are listening in a comfortable place where you can stay focused. If possible, put on headphones. They will help you catch the small details and sound patterns that are essential at the C2 level. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to be fully in this moment. This is not just a listening exercise. It is a real experience of hearing English as it is spoken by confident, fluent professionals. In a few seconds, the first conversation will begin. As you listen, imagine that you are part of the meeting. Imagine that you will need to respond afterward. This mindset will push your brain to listen more actively, and it will help you retain the information more deeply. When you treat a listening exercise like a real-life situation, your fluency improves faster and more naturally. If you are ready, let us begin the first advanced conversation. Stay focused, stay curious, and let the flow of English guide you forward. Here is conversation 1. You have just finished listening to the first advanced conversation. Before we move forward, I want you to stay in that mindset of deep, active listening. Take a moment to reflect on what you heard. Think about the tone, the rhythm, the pauses, and even the moments of hesitation. These are the invisible signals that experienced speakers use in real communication. Now let us move into the next phase of this lesson, where we analyze and process what you heard, so your understanding becomes more precise and more natural. Let us begin by breaking down a few of the patterns that appeared in the conversation. Notice how the speakers shifted between formal and informal expressions, depending on the purpose of their sentences. In a real business environment, English speakers rarely stay in one tone. They move smoothly from being polite and structured to being relaxed and conversational. This is a skill that many C1 and C2 learners need to master, because it reflects real-world communication rather than textbook English. In the dialogue, one of the speakers expressed concern about the timeline of the project. If you recall, the concern was not stated with strong emotion, but rather with a subtle and thoughtful tone. This tone is important for you to recognize. Advanced English often expresses disagreement or uncertainty indirectly, using softening phrases such as, "I'm not entirely sure," or "I'm a little concerned that." These expressions allow speakers to share difficult opinions in a more polite and strategic manner. When you understand these signals, you can follow the deeper meaning of a conversation, even when the words themselves are gentle. Another feature you might have noticed is the way the speakers used transitions. For advanced learners, transitions are essential. They help you stay oriented as topics shift quickly. Phrases like, "that said," on the other hand, and "the key point we should focus on," are common in professional environments. If you can recognize these markers instantly, you will understand the structure of the conversation, even when the details become complex. Now, let us practice something important. I want you to think about what you would have said if you had been part of that conversation. This is a powerful technique because it forces your brain to connect listening with speaking. Imagine you are one of the colleagues in the meeting. How would you express your opinion about the project timeline? Would you agree with the concern, or would you offer a different perspective? Practicing this kind of mental response helps you develop the ability to participate confidently in real English conversations, especially at an advanced level. Before we move to the next listening section, allow me to guide you through a short comprehension challenge. This challenge is not a test. Instead, it is a tool to sharpen your perception and help you listen more effectively. First question: what was the main issue discussed between the two colleagues? Try to recall the essence of the conversation, not the exact words. Advanced listening requires focusing on ideas, not memorizing sentences. If you can restate the main issue in your own words, you are developing strong comprehension skills. Second question: did the two speakers fully agree with each other? If not, what subtle differences appeared in their perspectives? In advanced English, disagreement does not always sound dramatic or emotional. Sometimes it is expressed in a calm and thoughtful tone. If you can detect small differences in opinion, you are listening at a high level. Third question: what emotions did you sense during the conversation? Even when people speak in a professional setting, emotions such as hesitation, optimism, or caution appear in their voices. Pay attention to these emotional layers because they help you understand the speaker's true intention. Now, let us analyze how you can use this first conversation as a training tool. If you want to build advanced fluency, do not just listen once. Repetition is powerful, but it must be intentional. Listen again with a clear purpose. For example, during the second listening, focus only on tone and stress. During the third listening, focus only on transitions and structure. When you isolate one skill at a time, your brain processes English more quickly and effectively. This method is used by many high-level learners around the world, and it works because it trains your listening from multiple angles. Next, we will move into the second conversation of this lesson. This conversation will sound more dynamic and less structured than the first one. The topic will shift more quickly, and the speakers will interrupt each other in natural ways. This reflects everyday communication in informal professional settings, such as a team cafe meeting or a brainstorming session. The rhythm will be faster, and the vocabulary will include idiomatic expressions that native speakers use casually, without realizing how challenging they can be for learners. Before we begin that conversation, let me prepare your mind with a few listening goals. First, try to identify any idioms or expressions that do not translate directly. Advanced learners often understand vocabulary, but struggle with phrases that carry cultural meaning. Second, pay attention to how the speakers adjust their voices when they want to emphasize something important. Stress patterns can change the meaning of a sentence, and at the C2 level, understanding stress is essential. Third, listen for interruptions and overlaps. These moments tell you how natural conversations flow in real time, and they help you get used to faster, less predictable speech. As you listen, imagine yourself standing in the same room as the speakers. Visualize their expressions, their gestures, and their reactions. Even though this is an audio experience, using your imagination will make the listening more vivid and easier to follow. Professional learners often use imagery like this to strengthen listening comprehension, because the brain connects sound with context more effectively when you visualize the setting. One more piece of advice before we begin the second conversation. Do not worry if you miss details. In advanced English, Missing a few words is normal, even for native speakers. What matters is that you stay connected to the overall message. Over time, your brain learns to fill in the gaps automatically. This is a sign of genuine fluency. Now take a deep breath. Prepare to enter the second advanced conversation. Stay focused, stay open, and allow the natural rhythm of English to guide your understanding. Conversation 2 begins now. You have just finished listening to the second conversation. This one moved faster, shifted topics more unpredictably, and included interruptions, idiomatic expressions, and natural pauses. Before we continue, allow your mind to settle for a moment. Advanced listening can feel demanding, but the challenge is exactly what helps your fluency grow. The more you expose yourself to this level of English, the easier it becomes for your brain to process meaning instantly, without translating or stopping to catch every single word. Let us begin by exploring some elements from Conversation 2 that are essential for advanced learners. One of the most noticeable features was the use of overlapping dialogue. When one speaker began to talk before the other fully finished, it created a sense of natural spontaneity. This can feel overwhelming at first for non-native speakers, but it reflects exactly how real conversations happen, especially in collaborative environments. In English-speaking workplaces, people often react quickly, share ideas before they are completely formed, or jump in with clarifications. Practicing this type of listening helps you stay flexible and alert, even when the conversation becomes unpredictable. Another important element in the conversation was the use of idiomatic expressions. Expressions such as think outside the box, touch base, or step up our game are commonly used in professional and casual settings alike. These expressions do not always make sense if you translate them literally. Instead, they carry cultural meaning that native speakers understand automatically. When you hear idioms, focus on the context. What is happening at the moment the idiom is used? How does the tone change? What reaction does it create in the other speaker? These clues help you interpret idioms more effectively and integrate them naturally into your own speaking. Now let us talk about tone and emphasis. In Conversation 2, there were several moments when speakers raised or softened their voices slightly to highlight a key point. Perhaps it was a concern about a deadline, or excitement about a new idea, or frustration with slow progress. In English, tone plays a major role in communication. Two speakers may use similar words, but their tone can change the meaning entirely. As a C1 or C2 learner, one of the most powerful skills you can develop is the ability to hear emotional signals within fast speech. These signals guide your comprehension, especially when the vocabulary or topic becomes complex. Before we move on, let me guide you through a reflection exercise that strengthens advanced listening. Imagine you are part of that second conversation. Visualize yourself sitting at the same table or standing in the same meeting area as the speakers. How would you respond when someone interrupts you? How would you express an idea that you feel strongly about? How would you clarify your point if someone misunderstood your intention? Thinking through these questions trains your brain not only to understand advanced English, but also to participate in it confidently. Now let us deepen your comprehension with a few challenge questions. These questions are not designed to trick you, but to help you analyze the conversation more effectively. First question: what was the central issue or goal being discussed? Even though the conversation shifted topics quickly, there was a main idea running through it. If you can identify that main thread, you are strengthening your ability to process complex conversations without getting lost in the details. Second question: which speaker took a more assertive or enthusiastic role? In natural conversations, roles shift constantly. Sometimes one person pushes ideas forward, while another evaluates them more carefully. Understanding these dynamics helps you follow the rhythm of the discussion, even when the conversation becomes fast and layered. Third question: what tone changes did you notice throughout the conversation? Listen for changes in energy, confidence, hesitation, or intensity. These emotional cues reveal how speakers feel, even when they do not state their emotions directly. Fourth question: did you notice any moments where a speaker hesitated or self-corrected? Self-correction is a normal part of real communication and happens even among native speakers. These moments show authentic thinking in progress and help you understand how real speech differs from scripted or textbook language. Now let us explore how you can use Conversation 2 for further training. A powerful technique is layered listening. In layered listening, you replay the audio multiple times, but each time you focus on a different element. For example, during your second listening, pay attention only to idioms. During your third listening, focus only on tone. During your fourth listening, focus on how ideas flow from one speaker to another. This method trains specific listening muscles and allows you to absorb complex English more effectively. You can also practice shadowing using short sections of the conversation. Shadowing means repeating the speaker's words immediately after you hear them, matching their speed, rhythm, and tone. Even advanced learners find this challenging, but it is one of the fastest ways to develop near-native fluency. When you shadow, do not worry about being perfect. The goal is to train your mouth, your breathing, and your cognitive processing to move at the same speed as natural English. Next, let me introduce the focus of the upcoming conversation. Conversation 3 will take place in a more personal setting. Instead of discussing work, the speakers will talk about life decisions, long-term goals, and the challenges of balancing ambition with well-being. This kind of conversation requires you to listen not only for information, but also for subtle shifts in emotion. You will hear expressions of doubt, reflection, enthusiasm, and vulnerability. These emotional layers make the listening more complex, but also more meaningful. Before we begin, I want you to prepare your mind for a deeper level of listening. When people discuss personal experiences, their voices often carry quieter signals. A pause can mean hesitation. A slightly faster sentence can reveal excitement. A softer tone can show uncertainty. As a C2 learner, training your ear to hear these gentle signals will take your listening skills to a higher level. As you prepare to listen, take a slow, deep breath. Remind yourself that advanced listening is not about catching every word. It is about connecting with meaning, emotion, and intention. Let the conversation unfold naturally. Allow yourself to follow the flow of ideas instead of worrying about perfection. Now, settle into a comfortable state of focus. Open your mind to the emotional and intellectual depth of authentic English communication. The third conversation begins now. You have just listened to the third conversation, a more personal and emotionally layered dialogue than the previous ones. This shift was intentional, When conversations move away from structured professional topics and enter deeper emotional territory, the language becomes more nuanced. People speak more freely, their thoughts wander, and their vocabulary includes more reflective or philosophical expressions. This is one of the most challenging forms of English to understand at an advanced level, and practicing it will significantly expand your overall fluency. Let us take a moment to observe some key features from this conversation. First, notice how the speakers used storytelling to express their ideas. They shared memories, gave examples from their past, and described moments that shaped their decisions. Storytelling is a fundamental part of natural conversation, especially when the topic is personal. Native speakers use stories to clarify feelings, justify opinions, or build trust with the listener. When you become good at understanding and telling stories in English, your fluency improves dramatically. Now think about the pacing of the conversation. At times, the speakers slowed down, allowing their thoughts to settle before continuing. At other times, they spoke quickly, especially when emotions were strong. These changes in speed reflect real human communication. When someone feels uncertain, they often pause. When someone feels enthusiastic, they often speak faster. Listening for these patterns helps you understand not only the meaning of the words, but also the emotional truth behind them. Another important detail in Conversation 3 was the use of reflective language. Expressions like, "I've been thinking a lot about," or "it made me realize that," or "I'm starting to see things differently," are common when people discuss life decisions or personal growth. These expressions help speakers frame their ideas with clarity and make the conversation richer. As an advanced learner, recognizing these expressions will help you follow complex discussions more easily. Before we move deeper, I want to guide you through a short reflection exercise based on what you heard. Imagine you were the third person in that conversation. The two speakers talked about choosing the right path, balancing ambition with rest, and dealing with the pressure of expectations. How would you join that discussion? What personal experience would you share? How would you express your feelings clearly but naturally? This kind of mental practice strengthens your active participation skills, which are essential for achieving true fluency. Now let us discuss a few comprehension challenges to deepen your understanding. First question: what central question were the speakers trying to explore? Even though they shared different experiences, their ideas connected to a deeper theme. If you can identify that underlying theme, you are learning to listen beyond surface-level details. Second question: which speaker showed more uncertainty about their future? Think about the hesitations, the tone shifts, and the vocabulary choices. Advanced listening requires noticing these subtle cues. Third question: did the two speakers give each other advice, or did they simply share perspectives? Personal conversations often move between guidance, empathy, reflection, and storytelling. Recognizing these modes helps you understand the intention behind each sentence. Fourth question: did any part of the conversation remind you of a situation in your own life? If yes, use that connection. When you relate content to your personal experience, your brain remembers it more deeply, and your listening comprehension improves. Let us now analyze how you can use Conversation 3 for further skill building. In this type of emotional dialogue, tone is more significant than vocabulary. Pay close attention to softness, hesitation, confidence, or warmth in the voice. These qualities transmit meaning that words alone cannot express. If you replay the conversation, try listening without focusing on the words at first. Listen only for emotion. Then, on the second listening, focus only on specific expressions or vocabulary that you found interesting. This two-layered method strengthens your intuition for advanced English. Another powerful exercise is to create your own short monologue inspired by the conversation. For example, describe a decision you made, a challenge you faced, or a moment of personal realization. Speak freely, without worrying about grammar. The goal is to let your English flow naturally, just like the speakers in the dialogue. This exercise trains your fluency and builds confidence in expressing complex thoughts. Next, let us prepare for Conversation 4. This upcoming conversation will blend personal reflection with analytical thinking. The speakers will discuss how people adapt to change, how they learn from failure, and how they navigate uncertainty in both personal and professional environments. This topic allows for rich vocabulary and layered sentences, which are excellent for C2 level training. However, the rhythm of the conversation will shift again. Unlike Conversation 3, which felt intimate and thoughtful, this fourth conversation will sound more dynamic. The speakers will exchange ideas more quickly, challenge each other's viewpoints, and ask deeper questions. Their dialogue will require you to detect subtle shifts in direction. Sometimes they will reflect quietly, but other times, they will push the discussion forward with stronger energy. Before we begin, I want you to set 3 intentions for your listening. First intention: listen for perspective changes. When people analyze concepts like growth, failure, or adaptation, they often shift from describing their personal experiences to discussing broader ideas. Try to identify when the speakers move from specific examples to general insights. Second intention: notice how they support their opinions. Advanced English speakers often explain their ideas using evidence, comparisons, or hypothetical situations. Listening for these structures helps you follow complex reasoning. Third intention: observe how they respond to disagreement. In advanced conversations, disagreement does not always sound tense. Sometimes it sounds curious, thoughtful, or even encouraging. Listening for these tones helps you understand the emotional climate of the conversation. Now prepare yourself for this next stage. Take a moment to settle your mind and return to a state of calm focus. The goal is not perfection. The goal is presence. When you listen with awareness instead of tension, your comprehension naturally improves, and your ability to think in English becomes stronger. Make sure you are comfortable. Adjust your headphones if needed. Breathe slowly. Allow the language to arrive without resistance. You are training your brain to follow ideas that flow quickly and naturally, just like in real life. You are now ready for Conversation 4. Let us begin. You have just completed Conversation 4, a dynamic and intellectually stimulating exchange that blended personal insight with analytical thinking. This type of conversation is common among advanced English speakers who enjoy exploring ideas deeply rather than simply exchanging information. It may have felt faster, more layered, and more mentally demanding, but that is exactly the challenge that strengthens your listening skills at the C2 level. Let us take a moment to reflect on some elements you heard. One of the most striking features of this conversation was the way the speakers shifted between specific experiences and broader reflections. For example, they might have shared a personal failure and then used that moment to discuss a larger idea about resilience or growth. This movement between personal and general perspectives is extremely common in advanced English. It shows maturity, thoughtfulness, and the ability to use language not just to describe events, but to explore meaning behind the events. Another important feature of this conversation was the way the speakers questioned each other. Notice that the questions were not simple or factual. Instead, they were open-ended questions that encouraged deeper thought, such as, "What do you think this experience taught you?" Or, "How do you feel you've changed since then?" These types of questions guide conversations into deeper territory. Understanding them helps you follow the direction of the discussion, even when it becomes abstract or philosophical. Now think about how the speakers disagreed with each other. Their disagreement was not emotional or confrontational. Instead, it was calm, respectful, and curious. They did not simply say, "I disagree." Instead, they expressed their different viewpoints through softening strategies like, "I see it differently," or "I understand your point, but from my perspective." These expressions help maintain a comfortable conversational tone while still allowing for differences in opinion. As an advanced learner, practicing this type of polite disagreement will make your conversations in English more natural and confident. Before we continue, let me guide you into a short analysis exercise. Think about a moment from the conversation where one speaker challenged an idea shared by the other. How did they introduce their disagreement? What words or tone did they use to soften their response? How did the other speaker react? These observations teach you not just vocabulary, but communication strategies that reflect authentic English interaction. Now let us explore a few comprehension questions that will deepen your understanding of this conversation. First question: what central idea connected the speakers' reflections about change and adaptation? Even though they shared different opinions, they were exploring a shared theme. Identifying that theme helps you understand the conversation as a whole, rather than focusing only on small details. Second question: which speaker seemed more optimistic about failure and growth? Pay attention to their tone, the examples they used, and the energy in their voice. In advanced listening, detecting shifts in confidence or optimism is key to understanding the deeper layers of meaning. Third question: did the conversation stay focused on one idea, or did it branch into related topics? Advanced conversations often move in several directions. Being able to follow these transitions is an essential part of mastering C2 listening. Fourth question: what kind of emotional tone did you notice during the more reflective moments? Was it thoughtful, calm, hesitant, or inspired? These details help you connect emotional context with linguistic meaning. Now let us talk about how you can use Conversation 4 for further training. One effective technique is to write a short reflection after listening. Describe one idea from the conversation that resonated with you. Explain why it stood out and how it connects to your own life. Writing reflections like this reinforces your listening comprehension and trains your brain to think in English at a deeper level. Another useful method is to practice speaking based on the conversation. Choose one question that appeared in the dialogue, such as, "How do you handle change?" or "What motivates you when things become difficult?" Then record yourself answering the question for 1 or 2 minutes. Do not worry about making mistakes. The goal is to express complex ideas clearly and naturally, just like the speakers in the conversation. This type of practice bridges the gap between listening and speaking. Now, it is time to prepare your mind for Conversation 5, which will shift once again into a different tone and context. This upcoming conversation takes place in a creative environment where the speakers discuss innovation, inspiration, and the creative process. Their dialogue will feel more spontaneous, imaginative, and expressive. You will hear descriptive language, metaphors, speculative ideas, and a more playful use of vocabulary. These features make the conversation both beautiful and challenging, perfect for C2 level comprehension. Before we begin, I want you to set 3 specific listening goals for this conversation. First goal: listen for figurative language. Creative discussions often include metaphors, comparisons, and symbolic expressions. These are not meant to be interpreted literally. Instead, they express feeling, mood, or perspective. Recognizing figurative language helps you understand the deeper meaning behind the words. Second goal: observe how the speakers express uncertainty. Creative discussions rarely have one clear answer. You may hear phrases like, "I'm not sure yet," or "I'm still exploring the idea," or "it might work, but I need to think more." These expressions are part of flexible, open-minded thinking. Third goal: notice the rhythm of excitement. Creative conversations often contain rising energy, sudden inspiration, and shifts in enthusiasm. Pay attention to the tone and pace. The emotional rhythm will help you follow the direction of the conversation, even when the vocabulary becomes abstract. Now prepare yourself for this shift in topic and tone. Adjust your posture if needed. Take a slow breath. Open your mind to a more imaginative and expressive style of English. You are training your listening skills across a wide spectrum of real-life contexts, and this variety is what makes you fluent, confident, and adaptable. When you are ready, let us begin Conversation 5. As we continue, let's move into a deeper layer of advanced listening. In this section, you will hear longer ideas, richer descriptions, and more subtle emotional tones. This level of listening challenges you to notice not just the words, but the intention behind them. Keep your focus on how thoughts connect, how opinions develop, and how speakers negotiate meaning. Let the language flow through you without forcing yourself to translate. Your mind already understands more than you think. Now imagine this moment. You are sitting in a small, warm cafe, late in the afternoon, listening to 2 professionals discussing the direction of a major project. The stakes are high, the expectations are even higher, and both people are trying to navigate the conversation with confidence and clarity. Listen carefully and try to picture the emotional atmosphere as well as the words. Conversation A. I've been reviewing the initial feedback from the board, and honestly, it seems like we underestimated how cautious they would be. They want clearer metrics, concrete timelines, and a stronger sense of projected return. B. I suspected they might react that way. It's not that they doubt our strategy. It's that they need something stable to hold on to. Maybe we should give them a phased rollout instead of a full launch. A. That might help. If we break it down into 3 stages, each with measurable progress points, they'll feel like the risk is more manageable. Plus, it gives us room to adjust if the market shifts unexpectedly. B. Exactly. And we should also refine the messaging. Right now, it leans too much on future potential, but not enough on what we've already accomplished. If we can show tangible proof of concept, it might ease their concerns. Agreed. We've actually achieved more than the original plan required, but we haven't communicated that clearly enough. People won't trust what they can't see, even if it's already real. Then let's make them see it. Let's prepare a detailed progress report, updated visual data, and a short demo. If we show confidence, they will follow. Now pause for a moment. Think about what you just heard. At this level, you're not only listening to vocabulary, you're listening to perspective, intention, and emotion. You're hearing uncertainty, strategy, and leadership in action. These are the kinds of conversations that happen in real workplaces, among real decision makers. And this is exactly the type of English you will need if you want to operate confidently at a C2 level. Let's move to another scenario. This time, imagine two old friends finally meeting again after several years apart. The tone is warm and reflective, filled with subtle emotional layers. Listen for how native speakers express nostalgia, honesty, and personal growth without sounding dramatic. Conversation. When I think back to those years, it feels like a different lifetime. I was so unsure of myself, always questioning whether I was on the right path. I remember, but you've changed so much since then. You're more grounded now, more decisive. I always felt like you had that in you. It just took time to surface. Maybe. I guess distance gave me perspective. Being away forced me to face things I kept avoiding. It wasn't always easy, but I'm grateful for it now. I get that completely. Growth rarely feels good in the moment. It only makes sense when you look back and realize how necessary it was. Exactly. And seeing you again reminds me of how far we've both come. It's strange, isn't it? How life pulls us in different directions, but somehow we still return to the people who mattered most. That's the part I appreciate. No matter how long we're apart, the connection is still there, unchanged. Notice the tone. Notice the rhythm. These are not textbook sentences. These are human conversations filled with subtle pauses, thoughtful reflection, and emotional depth. Advanced English is not about long or complicated vocabulary. It's about expressing ideas with natural precision. Now let's challenge your listening with faster, more dynamic speech. Imagine two colleagues discussing a sudden crisis at work. The pace is quicker, the reasoning is sharper, and the stakes are immediate. Focus on how quickly information is exchanged and how solutions take shape through rapid dialogue. Conversation. We've got a problem. The client just contacted us, and the numbers on the final report don't match the projections they were given last week. Are you serious? How did that happen? We checked everything twice before sending it. I know, but something changed in the data feed. It looks like a formatting error triggered a calculation shift. The whole model recalculated without anyone noticing. That's bad. How long do we have before they bring it up in the meeting? 2 hours at most. We need to correct the error, regenerate the report, and prepare a clear explanation. And we absolutely cannot look defensive. Then let's divide the work. You handle the data source and fix the model. I'll update the visuals and draft the narrative. If we stay coordinated, we can still pull this off. Agreed. And let's stay calm. The moment we panic, everything collapses. We've solved tougher problems before. This is advanced level communication, fast, strategic, and purposeful. You're hearing the flow of real decision-making, the structure of problem-solving, and the feeling of urgency that native speakers naturally express. Now take a deep breath. You're doing well. As you continue listening, your mind is strengthening connections, training itself to interpret complex language automatically. The goal is not perfection. The goal is comfort, clarity, and confidence. As we move forward, I want you to shift into a deeper state of awareness. At the C2 level, your listening ability is no longer just about catching words. It's about absorbing tone, intention, subtle differences in meaning, cultural nuance, and emotional patterns. In the next segment, you will hear conversations that explore complex topics, the kind that intelligent adults discuss in real life. Listen carefully, not only to what is being said, but to how the ideas are shaped, how opinions form and evolve, and how speakers signal agreement, hesitation, doubt, and conviction. These are the things that truly define advanced fluency. Let's begin with a conversation between two colleagues, reflecting on the concept of personal boundaries in the workplace. This topic requires nuance, emotional intelligence, and clarity. Notice how the speakers maintain professionalism while discussing something highly personal and subjective. Conversation A. I've been thinking a lot about how easily work can spill over into our personal lives. I mean, I enjoy what I do, but sometimes I feel like I'm carrying the job around, even after I leave the office. B. I know exactly what you mean. It's not even intentional. It just stays in your head. You replay conversations, rethink decisions, and imagine what you could have done differently. A. Right. And the strange part is that it feels like the more responsibility you gain, the harder it becomes to detach. I used to switch off the moment I stepped outside. Now it feels almost impossible. B. It's a common struggle. But I think setting boundaries doesn't mean caring less. It just means protecting your energy. If you burn out, you're not helpful to anyone, not even yourself. A. True. I guess I need to be more deliberate about separating the two. Maybe I should create clearer routines to help me disconnect, like putting my phone away after a certain hour. B. That could help. For me, it's physical space. I avoid working in the same area where I relax. That small difference actually trains my mind to switch modes. A. That makes sense. I'll try that. Maybe the real challenge is giving ourselves permission to step back without feeling guilty. B. Exactly. Boundaries are not selfish. They're necessary. Think about the tone of this exchange. It is reflective, thoughtful, and layered with emotional maturity. These are the kinds of conversations that demand a C2 level of comprehension, where the meaning is not in the vocabulary, but in the subtle attitudes expressed through rhythm and tone. Pay attention to how native speakers express empathy and support without sounding overly sentimental. Now let's move to a more intellectually challenging conversation. This time, two friends are discussing the impact of artificial intelligence on creativity. The topic is abstract, analytical, and requires complex reasoning. Listen closely to how ideas are compared, challenged, and expanded. Conversation A. It feels like we're entering a new era, where creativity is no longer limited to human imagination. AI is producing music, literature, even visual art. It's fascinating, but also unsettling. B. I get what you mean. It's incredible to see machines generate complex things, but part of me wonders what it means for originality. If an algorithm creates something beautiful, does it still hold the same artistic value? A. That's the question. Some people argue that creativity is about intention, not just output. A machine doesn't feel emotion or meaning, so its creations might lack depth. B. Maybe, but humans interpret meaning, not machines. Even if the creator feels nothing, the audience still reacts emotionally. Perhaps the origin is less important than the impact. A. That's an interesting way to see it, but I still worry that relying on algorithms could weaken our creative muscles. If everything becomes automated, where does human imagination fit in? B. I think it evolves. Technology has always expanded what we can do. Maybe AI won't replace human creativity. Maybe it will just amplify it, giving us new tools to express ideas we couldn't before. That's a hopeful perspective. It reminds me that every technological shift felt threatening at first, but we adapted. Maybe this is no different. Conversations like this require advanced listening because the speakers are not just exchanging information, they are exploring abstract ideas, considering multiple perspectives, and challenging assumptions. There is no simple right or wrong. The value lies in how the speakers process the topic. This type of listening prepares you for intellectual discussions in English, the kind that happen in universities, professional settings, and deep personal conversations. Now let's change the pace with a more dynamic situation. You will hear two co-workers trying to solve an unexpected last-minute issue during a major event. The tone is urgent but controlled. The language becomes tighter, more direct, and action-focused. This style of communication is essential in fast-paced professional environments. Conversation. We have a situation. The keynote speaker's flight has been delayed, and the earliest they can get here is an hour after their scheduled slot. B. That's a serious problem. The audience expects them to open the event. We need an alternative plan immediately. I'm thinking we can rearrange the order of presentations. If we move the panel discussion to the opening slot, we can buy more time. B. That could work, but we need to confirm availability. Are the panelists already here? A. 2 of them are. The third is on the way, but should arrive within 15 minutes. If we brief them quickly, they can handle the shift. B. Then let's do it. And we should inform the audience as soon as they start checking in. A calm, clear announcement will prevent confusion. A. Agreed. I'll coordinate with the event team. You handle the communication. Let's keep the tone confident. We don't want it to sound like a crisis. B. Absolutely. Every event has unexpected challenges. What matters is how smoothly we adapt. This type of dialogue trains your ability to follow fast, solution-oriented speech. Notice how quickly decisions are made. Notice how the speakers respond to pressure. These are real-world communication skills at a professional C2 level. Now take another deep breath. You've processed various emotional tones, conversational speeds, and intellectual demands. Your listening ability is strengthening with each section, and your brain is learning to decode complex English automatically. This is how fluency is built, not through memorizing words, but through exposure to authentic communication patterns. In the next part, we will continue pushing your listening skills with extended conversations and higher emotional complexity. When you are ready, move on to part 8. As we continue, I want you to let your mind settle even deeper into the rhythm of English. At this stage, your listening ability is not just a skill. It is becoming a habit, a natural mental process that works automatically beneath your awareness. The more you expose yourself to complex, authentic language, the more fluent and intuitive your English becomes. In this part, you will hear conversations that explore deeper emotional truths, ethical dilemmas, and the complexities of human decision-making. These themes require careful listening, openness, and the ability to understand not only words but intentions. Let's begin with a scenario involving two close colleagues discussing an ethical dilemma at work. The tone is serious, introspective, and morally challenging. Pay attention to how the speakers balance honesty with caution, and how they express doubt without losing their professionalism. Conversation. A. I'm struggling with something, and I'm not sure how to handle it. During yesterday's review, I noticed a significant error in the financial report. It wasn't intentional, but if we ignore it, it could mislead the entire leadership team. B. That's a difficult position to be in. Mistakes happen, but the way we respond to them matters. Do you think the team will react negatively if you bring it up? A. I'm worried they might. The project is already behind schedule, and pointing out the error could slow things down even more. But pretending it doesn't exist feels wrong. B. I agree. It's a delicate situation, but accuracy and integrity can't be compromised. If the numbers are off, people deserve to know. The consequences of hiding it could be far worse. A. That's what I keep thinking. Still, I know how stressed everyone is. I don't want to be the one who adds more pressure. B. You're not adding pressure. You're protecting the project. And if the team values transparency, they'll respect you for speaking up. Sometimes doing the right thing feels uncomfortable, but it still needs to be done. A. You're right. I'll bring it up in the next meeting. Hopefully they'll understand I'm not trying to cause problems. B. They will. Just present the information clearly and calmly. You're doing the responsible thing. This type of conversation requires advanced listening because the speakers are navigating moral judgment, emotional sensitivity, and workplace politics all at once. Notice how they express uncertainty without losing clarity, and how they support each other while still acknowledging the difficulty of the situation. These nuances are central to C2 level comprehension. Now let's transition to a more emotionally open conversation. This time, imagine two lifelong friends talking late at night about how their priorities have shifted over the years. The tone is warm, honest, and reflective. Listen carefully to how the speakers describe their inner worlds without exaggeration or dramatic language. Conversation. A. It's strange, isn't it? The older I get, the more I realize how little I actually need to feel fulfilled. When I was younger, everything felt urgent and meaningful. Now I just want peace. B. I feel the same way. I used to chase everything: opportunities, recognition, approval. I thought that was what success looked like. But now I see that success is more about alignment than achievement. A. That's a good way to put it. Alignment, knowing who you are and what truly matters. I think I spent so much time trying to impress the world that I forgot to listen to myself. B. We all do at some point. But I think that's part of growing up. You realize that your energy is limited, and you become more intentional about where you spend it. A. Exactly. I value quiet moments now. Time with people who understand me. Time alone. I don't need constant excitement anymore. B. Neither do I. And honestly, I've never been happier. It's refreshing to let go of expectations that never belonged to us in the first place. A. It really is. I guess simplicity becomes more beautiful the more experience you gain. This type of conversation trains you to hear emotional subtlety. It shows how native speakers express depth using calm, thoughtful language. At a C2 level, understanding tone is just as important as understanding vocabulary. Now we'll shift to a faster, more energetic dialogue. This one involves two co-workers trying to finalize a major pitch. The pace is quick, the language is precise, and the decision-making is rapid. Try to follow without pausing. This is what real workplace conversation sounds like in high-pressure moments. Conversation A. The client meeting is in 40 minutes. We need to finalize the pitch now. Are the visual slides ready? B. Almost. I'm updating the final section, but we still need a stronger transition between the second and third points. It feels abrupt. A. Then let's rewrite it. We need a smoother connection, something that highlights continuity instead of contrast. B. Agreed. What if we frame it around long-term stability? That way, the shift feels intentional rather than sudden. A. That could work, and we should simplify the language. The client wants clarity, not jargon. B. I'll fix that. What about the closing statement? Do we keep the original version or create a more direct one? A. More direct. We don't have time for complexity. A clear, confident ending will leave a stronger impression. B. All right, I'll finalize everything within 10 minutes. Then we can rehearse the delivery. A. Perfect. And remember, confidence is everything. As long as we're grounded, the presentation will land well. This type of conversation challenges your ability to process fast-moving dialogue, where solutions must be created instantly. This is advanced fluency in real-life action. Now take a moment to reflect. You've listened to workplace ethics, emotional introspection, and high-speed professional coordination. Each segment strengthens a different part of your listening foundation. You're not just hearing conversations, you're learning how English functions in the real world, how people think, feel, and communicate under different circumstances. You are training your brain to understand English the same way native speakers do, through intuition, context, and emotional awareness. This is what true C2 fluency feels like. You're getting closer with every part of this training. In the next section, we will push your listening even further with longer, more complex exchanges and higher emotional stakes. When you're ready, continue to part 9. As we move into this next section, I want you to imagine yourself becoming more and more connected to the flow of English. At this stage, the language is no longer something external that you chase. It becomes something internal that you inhabit. You're no longer listening only for meaning. You're listening for intention, tone, and emotional texture. This is what separates advanced speakers from true C2 listeners. It's not about understanding every word. It's about understanding the moment behind the words. In this part, you will hear conversations that deal with life-changing decisions, complex emotions, and subtle interpersonal dynamics. These are the areas where advanced English shines the brightest. They require clarity, empathy, and the ability to see beyond literal meaning. Listen with openness and allow the language to carry you into deeper understanding. Let's begin with a conversation between two family members discussing a major life transition. The tone is gentle but honest. Notice how support is expressed subtly and how reassurance is woven into simple sentences. Conversation A. I've made my decision, and it wasn't easy. I've decided to accept the job abroad. I know it means being away for a long time, but I feel like it's something I need to do for myself. B. I had a feeling you were leaning in that direction. How do you feel now that you've made the final choice? A. Relieved, but also scared. I've never lived so far from home before. I'm excited for the opportunity, but part of me keeps wondering if I'm making a mistake. B. It's normal to feel that way. Every big decision comes with uncertainty. But I know you. You think things through carefully. If you feel this is right, then trust your instinct. A. I guess I just worry about disappointing the people I care about. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm leaving them behind. B. You're not leaving anyone behind. You're growing. And the people who truly care about you will support that. Even from a distance, relationships can stay strong. A. I needed to hear that. Thank you. This conversation shows emotional honesty, expressed in clear, simple language. At the C2 level, you should pay attention to the delicate balance between reassurance and realism. Notice how the speaker acknowledges fear while also supporting independence. This emotional mix is part of what makes advanced English so rich. Now let's move into a more intellectually complex discussion. Two colleagues are debating whether technological innovation always leads to progress. The conversation is thoughtful and analytical, with each person presenting perspectives and counterpoints. Listen for subtle shifts in tone and argument development. Conversation. A. I've been thinking about our conversation earlier. You said innovation always moves society forward, but I'm not sure I agree. Some technological changes feel more disruptive than helpful. B. I understand the concern, but disruption isn't necessarily negative. Sometimes it pushes us to adapt, rethink our habits, and grow. Without disruption, we might stay stuck in outdated systems. A. That's true, but not all progress benefits everyone equally. When a new technology emerges, some people gain opportunities, while others lose stability. Isn't progress supposed to improve life more broadly? B. Ideally, yes. But progress has always been uneven. The important part is how we manage the transition. If we prepare people properly, the long-term benefits can outweigh the short-term discomfort. A. But preparation is often lacking. Look at how quickly some industries are changing. People are being expected to reinvent themselves at a pace that doesn't feel human. B. That's a fair point. Maybe the real issue isn't innovation itself, but how we handle the consequences. Technology is neither good nor bad on its own. It depends on how responsibly we implement it. A. I can agree with that. It's not black and white. I suppose the real challenge is making sure progress is guided thoughtfully instead of blindly. Conversations like this require you to follow reasoning, compare perspectives, and sense emotional undercurrents, even when the topic is logical or abstract. This is high-level comprehension. You're not just hearing arguments, you're hearing values, priorities, and thought processes. Now let's increase the pace. You will hear a situation where two coworkers must quickly adapt to unexpected changes in a project. The tone is fast, decisive, and focused. Try to absorb the flow without pausing. Conversation. A. We've got new instructions from upper management. The direction has shifted, and we need to revise the proposal before the presentation tomorrow. B. That's sudden. What exactly changed? A. They want a stronger emphasis on long-term sustainability. Our current version focuses mainly on short-term growth. B. Then we need new examples, updated metrics, and a revised narrative. That's a lot for one night, but it's doable. A. I'll handle the metrics. Can you rewrite the impact section and adjust the visuals? B. Yes, but we need to stay aligned. Let's set a consistent tone. Strategic, optimistic, and grounded in data. A. Agreed. And let's keep the message simple. Clarity is more important than complexity right now. B. I'll have a draft ready in 2 hours. After that, we can merge everything and rehearse. A. Perfect. Let's move fast but stay calm. If we're coordinated, we can turn this around. This type of conversation trains you to understand rapid problem-solving language. At the C2 level, clarity becomes more important than vocabulary. The challenge is following shifting priorities, condensed information, and quick decisions. Now breathe. You've absorbed multiple emotional registers: supportive, analytical, urgent, reflective. Your brain is learning not just English, but the rhythm of real communication. You're learning how people switch tones depending on context, how they express doubt without losing confidence, and how they make decisions under pressure. The more you listen, the more effortlessly your mind will begin to track these patterns. This is the essence of C2 fluency. You understand not only the words, but the world behind the words. In the next section, we'll push your listening even further with extended dialogues and more nuanced emotional content. As we move into this final part of our advanced listening journey, I want you to take everything you have learned so far and apply it with complete confidence. At this stage, your listening ability should feel sharper, more responsive, and more intuitive. You are no longer trying to catch every single word. Instead, you are focusing on the message, the flow, the rhythm, and the deeper meaning behind real conversation. That is exactly how C2 level English works. It is not about perfection. It is about natural comprehension. In this final section, I will guide you through a long-form reflection exercise, similar to what advanced learners use in academic, professional, and high-level communication settings. Listen to my thoughts, follow the flow, and then respond internally in your own English. Your task is not to speak out loud, but to think in English as naturally as possible. This will help you shift from translating to processing English in real time, just like a native speaker. Imagine that you are sitting with me after completing a lengthy training session. We are reviewing your progress, your strengths, and the areas where you can grow. I want you to picture a quiet space, maybe a small cafe or a workspace in the evening, where the atmosphere is calm enough for deep reflection. I begin by asking you a question that requires advanced thinking. What does fluency actually mean to you now, after all this practice? Think about that carefully. Fluency is no longer simply the ability to speak quickly. It is the ability to respond with clarity, confidence, and emotional precision. It is the ability to understand people who speak at full native speed without asking them to repeat or explain. It is the ability to participate, not just observe. That is where you are heading. Now reflect on your listening skills specifically. Has your comprehension improved? Can you follow complex ideas, even when the speaker changes tone, speed, or structure? Can you recognize subtle cues like hesitation, emphasis, or emotional shifts? These details matter because they are the difference between basic understanding and advanced mastery. Most learners focus only on vocabulary and grammar, but C2 listening depends heavily on intuition, tone, rhythm, and context. If you have followed this entire series, from part 1 to part 10, you have practiced exactly those skills. Let's move into a guided shadowing exercise. I will speak a short paragraph naturally, and your task is to silently shadow in your mind. matching the tone and rhythm, even if you cannot keep up with every single word. Here is the paragraph. I've realized over time that mastering a language is not about memorizing endless rules, but about developing a deeper relationship with the language itself. The more you listen, the more natural patterns become. The more you immerse yourself, the more the language transforms from something you study to something you live. Repeat that silently in your mind. Notice the emotional rhythm. Notice how the sentences rise and fall. This is the real sound of advanced English. Next, I want to challenge your comprehension with a short scenario. Listen carefully and try to visualize every detail. A senior project strategist is presenting a final proposal to an international team. The stakes are high because the company's long-term direction depends on this plan. The strategist begins by outlining the potential risks, acknowledging that no project of this scale can be executed without uncertainty. Then she shifts into a calm but confident explanation of the opportunities, emphasizing how innovation often requires bold action. Her tone is measured, her structure is clear, and her arguments are supported by data. As she speaks, the team members ask rapid-fire questions, not to oppose her, but to ensure they understand the full picture. She listens carefully, never rushing, responding with precision while maintaining the bigger vision. After 20 minutes of discussion, the atmosphere shifts. The team becomes aligned. Consensus forms. The proposal moves forward. Now think, were you able to follow the progression from risk to opportunity to discussion to final alignment? Did you sense the shift in tone as the meeting evolved? This type of narrative comprehension is crucial at the C2 level. You are not only listening to words, you are listening to dynamics, intentions, and the underlying energy of communication. At this stage, I want you to reflect on one final question. If you had been part of that meeting, would you have understood the conversation fully? And if not, which part challenged you the most? Was it the speed, the structure, the vocabulary, the emotional shifts? Identifying your learning gaps is just as important as practicing your strengths. Use this awareness to guide your next steps. Now let's conclude with your final advanced listening check. I will read 5 statements. After each one, silently decide whether it feels formal, neutral, or informal. This is a key C2 skill because advanced listeners can instantly sense tone. Here we go. Statement 1. Given the circumstances, I believe this is the most reasonable approach moving forward. Statement 2. Honestly, I'm not entirely convinced this will work, but I'm open to discussing it. Statement 3. If we want to compete globally, we'll have to rethink our strategy from the ground up. Statement 4. I really appreciate your input. It gives us a clearer direction. Statement 5. At this point, the only thing left to do is finalize the details and execute. Take a moment to classify each one. If you can easily sense the differences, your listening awareness is advancing exactly as it should. As we wrap up this final part, I want to say something important. Your consistency matters more than your speed. Fluency is earned through repetition, exposure, and patience. Every minute you spend listening, shadowing, or thinking in English builds stronger pathways in your brain. So keep going, keep practicing, keep showing up for yourself. Thank you for spending this long training with me here on DreamWave English. I'm Sophia, and I'm proud of how far you've come. If you want more advanced listening lessons, real conversation practice, and long-form fluency training. Make sure you subscribe and stay connected. Your journey is just beginning, and I'm here to guide you every step of the way.